Let's look at well-formed arguments. That is, arguments that just have good logic. And we'd like to mention, or I'd like to get you to understand a few different characteristics of it and some basic ones. One basic issue you're going to see is that there are two kinds of arguments that exhibit good logic. So there are two kinds of well-formed arguments and two kinds of logic. And we can get to the distinction that we're looking for by thinking about an example of each of these kinds. So let's consider first the following argument. Classical argument. Socrates is a man. All men are mortal. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. Now, that looks like a good argument. And it also looks like there's a really good connection between the premises and the conclusion. So that looks like a good argument. It looks like it has both characteristics. That is, good logic and good facts. But let's not worry about the facts. We're worried about the logic. And this one looks like from those two premises you really can draw the conclusion that Socrates is mortal, or it's reasonable to draw that conclusion. And remember, in part, that's what well-formed arguments are supposed to. Arguments with good logic telling you what kinds of conclusions you can actually get to from the premises that you have. Well, consider the second argument. Most college students are high school graduates. Jim's a college student. Therefore, Jim is a high school graduate. Now, that's a little bit different than the first argument, but nonetheless, I think, regardless of who Jim is, and let's not even worry about the statistics, but I think we can see that, if the premises are true, it seems reasonable for you to believe the conclusion. That is, if somebody says, look, I'm going to tell you two things and I want you to make a bet, most college students are high school graduates. That actually happens to be the case, but it's not relevant to worrying about the form of the argument, whether the conclusion actually follows. This guy Jim is a college student. Now I want you to bet. Which conclusion are you going to bet on? Are you going to bet that 3 is 3? That 3 is true? Or are you going to bet that Jim's a high school graduate? Or are you going to bet that he isn't a high school graduate and you have to make a bet? Well, obviously you think it's a good bet that he's a high school graduate, but it's not quite as good as a bet as that Socrates is mortal, given the two premises of the first argument. So what I'm claiming here is that both of these arguments exhibit good logic, but there's a difference in the kind of good logic that they exhibit, and we want to make a distinction. And let's look at each of these arguments separately in a little detail.